Context window in large language models and tokens. I want to talk about the relationship to it because what we're starting to hear more of in our classes now that people are using them more is I did all this stuff with it and now it seems to be forgetting or dropping pieces out. And that's when you're starting to hit the limit of the context window. And but also what is the way it's keeping track of it? How does it bill? How does it manage it? That's the tokens. And so we want to have a conversation of understanding both because we believe if you have a sense of what's going on a little bit in the background, then you can plan better and be more effective.
Right. And so to break down both of these into their kind of smaller, more easier to understand definitions, a token is essentially represents words. So something like cat, the is really represents a one token. And so it's the building blocks of how AI processes language. So if cat is one token, unbelievable, maybe multiple supercalifragilistics, going to be quite a number of them. And so as you can understand, the more you put in or the longer the conversation, those tokens are going to add up. That's when you get into your context window. So your context window is the maximum number of tokens the model can process and remember during a single conversation. So it's kind of your memories full in that conversation. And so one of the things I like to liken it to is growing up, I used to love going down to Nag's Head to Jeanette's fishing pier because they had an arcade right there. You could go right over the water, play arcade, walk out, go fishing. And so the tokens were how I played the video game. I'd buy tokens and I'd be able to go out, play video games, have my conversation. The context window was my wallet. I could only fit so much money in there. And so when I hit my limit of spending tokens, I was out. I had to leave and go get more money, start a new conversation, or I was done for the evening. Now, one of the tools that really does a good job in helping you understand and communicating this to you is Claude by Anthropic, because, and I've seen this become more visible lately when I use it. It works in two ways. If I'm really working through maybe in a project and I'm working through a conversation thread that I'm really getting a lot of work done, I'll notice that the longer the thread goes, it will even start telling me in the steps that wait a moment, I'm compressing the information in this conversation to be able to extend our conversation or the thread. And so what it's doing is it's starting to compress those tokens in a way to extend it a little further. Now, once I hit my limit, then many times what happens is when I go to put in the next prompt, I'll get a notification at the top of the prompt bar that says you hit your limit of context window or tokens in this context window. Please start a new conversation. And so then I back out, go back into my project, start a new conversation. Now, two of the things that Martin and I have found out, discovered through working across classes and consulting to help you with context window is one, having the model actually do a lot of the work. And that's why if you've ever attended one of our classes, you've heard us talking about the Ask Me Five Questions prompt. And so why that's so amazing is because what it does, it is allows us to capitalize on the analytical power and the processing power of the model to be very concise, way more concise than we're capable of doing while we're giving it more information. And so it's an investment in tokens through answering questions, but what happens is the payoff is we get to the point, we get to the product or the solution a lot faster, which allows us to be able to speak more in that conversation. Now, the second one, and this one's incredibly powerful, is if you're going to be working on something, use projects because it can be frustrating to work an independent thread and hit that context window because although you may have memory turned on, you've still got a lot of moving parts through your general threads that can not really taint but influence the conversation. Whereas if you go ahead and start within a project, you have that sandbox to where once you hit that context window on one thread, you can very easily jump to another. And because it's in the project, it's going to be pulling from the same information and very similar conversations within that project. So you don't really lose anything. You really just recycle it back in while being able to capitalize on more and more conversations. So if you can practice those two things and become very effective at that, then you can really increase your ability, increase your capacity within your context window, and get a lot more out of these tools.
Yeah, it's also make sure you're doing it in a way that you want it to give you an answer one at a time,
Hmm.
so that you interact with it. Another analogy I have on teaching context window is it's imagine there's a tabletop and there's limited space and you're working on the tabletop and you're putting new things on, and but there's a point where stuff starts falling off. But the fact is, you may not see it falling off. That's like the context window. That's the working space of that conversation. And when it falls off and you don't know it, you've lost data. And the other thing to understand with this is sometimes you might want to get it to summarize. Justin, I've done it on larger
Hmm.
projects. I go, I'd like you to give me a report on how close I am to filling the contact windows. And say, one of it says, since you're working on a workbook, we should be good to finish it. But
Hmm.
after you do, you might want to summarize it. And I'll ask it to summarize it so I have a seed idea for opening a new conversation. So these are some other things we go into more detail in our training on. So you maximize this. Other things is what you're uploading to it. So, for example, uploading a PDF that has its own overhead on it takes more processing and uses
Hmm.
up more tokens than Markdown language. And Markdown language is something that's been around for a while. But you know it because you probably copied some of the early ChatGPT and went, where did the bold go? It has stars on both sides of the
Hmm.
text. Well, that's Markdown language. It's text that has some instruction in it and it doesn't take up as much space. So that's something you also want to learn about. We cover this in our training. So then you can put your content into a form that doesn't consume as many tokens, especially if you're going to reference it a number of times. So many of these are techniques we've developed to maximize that workspace. The last thing I want to mention, Justin, is some people just have heard the word token but don't really know where it comes from or how's it related. So I want to talk about that a minute and mention that tokens came from when it does the learning. Treat, yeah, large language model absorbing everything it can from the world. It's breaking in and building those relationships with the algorithms, much
Hmm.
more advanced than this, but this is the part, but it's a relationship between the tokens. So when it came to how do we bill and manage the time in these massive computers, they thought that volume of tokens, these sub pieces moving, is how we're going to determine how to bill it. Well, when you pay like the $8 a month or have free or the $20 a month or other, you aren't seeing the token use, but what you are seeing is a little thing that says you have to come back after 5.
Hmm.
Well, basically, you've used up your allotted tokens that's in the system. So that's why these work together. Thinking about these and having understanding will make it more efficient. Oh, if I upload this and then I put it at maximum processing level for something that's just a simple edit, I'm going to use up more tokens, I'm going to use up more space. These both work together. And the more you can understand a little bit of the background, the more effective you can get in maximizing what you're paying for with these or the free level you're using.
Right. And one of the things that we've developed too, it can take a little extra effort, but if you're really invested in really trying to stay on the free level, then what we do is use something like DuckDuckGo, as long as it's not something that's proprietary or you want to put into a paid account. But use something like DuckDuckGo, or if you prefer ChatGPT over Gemini, start out in Gemini, do a lot of the heavy lifting, hit your context window there, like Martin said with the summary. And then by the time you go into your preferred tool, you have a lot of the heavy lifting, the drafting, the early work done to where you can really start hitting the real refining, the real minute and powerful work in your preferred tool. So there is a way around it as well. On free versions, it just takes a little bit more strategy.
And it's better to have a workflow than just I've got 5 emails and when I hit one, I run out. It's
Right.
like, no, I'm going to work to refine the prompt on this one, and then I'll go over to this one next. It's much more effective in versus we hear once where I've got 10 different Gmail accounts and I'm switching between all of those. So this is why both of these are important. This is something where I still believe the large language models, Justins, could do more
Mm-hmm.
to communicate as we're reaching that, and also maybe a sense of the use of tokens. I believe that would massively improve the usability of these, and it'll probably save them in resources because hitting that wall and then having to stop people and they come back at 5:30 or something, there's an inefficiency in their systems as well. This is another tip. Put your comments below. Check out our resources and articles listed below. We work at all levels, from individuals to consulting to training for small business institutions, schools, towns, counties, corporate level. We want you to be empowered so that you are using these tools the best. And one of the missing pieces in a lot of corporations, Justin, is they're going, go use these tools, and then they're maxing out expenses that exceed the number of employees they laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And they aren't doing the work with someone like us to really understand their process before they begin.
Absolutely.
This is Martin Brossman
And Dr. Justin Rose.